Chosen one. Not everyone was born just to exist, work, and repeat cycles. Some souls came with a deeper assignment, not to fit into the world, but to remember who they truly are. Before understanding dawns, something begins to stir. A subtle restlessness, a feeling that ordinary life can no longer hold the vastness growing inside you. You sense that something ancient is calling, yet you can't name it. The world tells you to stay calm, to be practical, to follow the same routines, but inside, your soul whispers, "This cannot be all there is." At first, you ignore it. You try to fill the silence with noise, the emptiness with activity, but the ache only grows. It is not sadness, it's spiritual homesickness, a longing to return to the truth buried beneath years of survival. The routines that once felt normal begin to feel foreign, borrowed, and too small for who you're becoming. This is the awakening. Stir the first movement of remembrance. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or signs in the sky. It arrives like a whisper that won't leave you alone. A holy discontent that refuses to be silenced until you look inward and remember your origin. You begin to question, who am I really? Why do I feel this way? And in that questioning, heaven smiles, because the very act of asking means your soul has started to wake. The confusion that follows is not punishment, it's construction. God begins dismantling every identity you built just to survive, every story you accepted just to belong. The discomfort is sacred. It's your old life resisting your new frequency. You might feel like you're losing control, but what's really happening is surrender, the shedding of illusions that once kept you safe but now keep you small. The systems, friendships, ambitions, and desires that no longer match your vibration begin to fade. It's not rejection, it's redirection. And though it may feel like isolation, it's actually divine intimacy. Heaven draws you away from noise so that you can hear the voice of purpose again. The same voice that whispered over your spirit before you were born. You are mine. You are chosen. This is the moment the veil begins to lift. The unseen starts making itself known. You begin to feel life beneath the surface of everything, signs, synchronicities, moments of alignment that seem impossible to explain but too precise to dismiss. It is the universe reminding you that you were never ordinary. You were always divine in disguise. Chosen one. This is your call to remember. The restlessness inside you is not a curse, it's a compass. The unease you feel is heaven rearranging your destiny. Don't fear what's falling apart. Fear staying where your soul no longer fits. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. You are awakening. You are remembering. And heaven is watching, smiling, saying, finally, they see. Chosen one. The moment you awaken, something begins to shift quietly within you. Not in chaos, but in subtle endings. The routines that once made sense start to lose meaning. The conversations that once inspired now drain you. It's not because you've become ungrateful, it's because your soul no longer fits inside the life that once contained you. At first, you try to ignore it. You tell yourself it's just fatigue, just a phase. You try to force yourself to feel excitement for what used to light you up. But deep down, you know something has changed forever. The truth is, you're outgrowing your disguise. For years, you wore versions of yourself that the world found acceptable. You learned how to smile on command, how to hide pain behind productivity, how to survive inside expectations that never felt like home. You played roles, you built images, you carried names that made you easier to understand, but none of them were truly you. Now, the divine fire of awakening begins to burn away every false layer. Slowly, silently, the masks fall. The identities you built for protection start to dissolve. The version of you that was shaped by fear, validation, and adaptation begins to fade into memory. This process doesn't feel glorious at first, it feels like loss. You might look around and realize you no longer relate to the world you helped build. You may feel isolated, disconnected, even invisible. But in reality, heaven is performing sacred surgery. What looks like endings are really extractions, the removal of everything that no longer serves your expansion. This is the silent end of the old self. You are not losing yourself, you are meeting yourself for the first time. The divine blueprint buried beneath layers of conformity is finally resurfacing. And while the ego mourns what is fading, your spirit rejoices for what is awakening. You are being stripped of the artificial so you can live as the authentic. This is why nothing feels the same, because you are not the same. You begin to notice how your spirit no longer tolerates certain environments, conversations, or energies. You crave stillness, truth, and depth. You find beauty in simplicity and peace in solitude. These are signs that your old vibration is dying and your true frequency is being restored. Chosen one, don't be afraid of what is leaving. The loss is not the end, it's the evidence of transformation. Even the silence you feel now is sacred. It's the space where your soul breathes after years of suffocation. When the old self dissolves, confusion will visit, but peace will follow. The emptiness you feel isn't absence, it's room. Room for truth, room for newness, room for the version of you that heaven originally designed. You are not who you were, and that's exactly the point. This is your metamorphosis, quiet, sacred, irreversible. Let what must be gently, because what is being born through you is eternal. Chosen one, when your spirit begins to awaken, the first thing heaven touches is not your career, your wealth, or your dreams, it's your connections. Because every bond carries energy. And the moment your vibration rises, what once matched you begins to fall away. This is one of the most painful parts of the awakening. You start to notice distance growing where there once was closeness. People you loved suddenly feel foreign. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel heavy, hollow, or forced. You find yourself in the same rooms, but it's as if the air has changed. You can feel it, even if you can't explain it. You're not imagining it. This is the spiritual realignment that happens when the frequency of your life begins to shift. It's not betrayal, it's transition. God is clearing your environment to make room for your elevation. Sometimes the separation is gentle, a slow drifting apart. Other times it's abrupt, confusing, or painful. But whether quiet or chaotic, it carries divine purpose. You cannot rise while still rooted in spaces that demand your silence. You cannot expand while holding on to what was never built to grow with you. The breaking of old connections is not punishment, it's protection. Heaven sees what you cannot. There are people whose seasons in your story have already ended, yet you kept trying to write them into new chapters. But God, in His mercy, allows discomfort to do what discernment refused to. You may feel lonely in this phase, but solitude is sacred ground. It's in this silence that heaven begins to restore your spiritual hearing. You start to notice the voice within again, the one you silenced for the sake of belonging. The temporary isolation is the cocoon of transformation, and though the world may label it loss, heaven calls it recalibration. Some people will misunderstand you. They'll say you've changed, and they're right. Because awakening doesn't just elevate your energy, it refines your circle. When you stop tolerating what drains your peace, those attached to your old version will fall away. Don't chase what's leaving. Don't resent what's ending. Let it fall. Let it go. Let heaven prune. Every divine garden requires cutting before it blooms. Chosen one, you were not made to carry relationships that stunt your evolution. Your compassion is powerful, but it cannot hold up what God Himself is releasing. Those who are meant for you will feel peace in your growth, not jealousy. They will celebrate your expansion, not compete with it. So bless those who go, and bless those who stay, because both are part of your alignment. This is the third symptom of the chosen ones, the breaking of old connections, the sacred separation that makes room for divine companionship. It hurts now, but you'll soon understand. The emptiness left behind was never empty. It was God making space for what's next. Chosen one. When the awakening deepens, something extraordinary happens. Your spiritual senses begin to sharpen. It's subtle at first. You start noticing energies that others overlook. A conversation feels heavy, a room suddenly feels off, or a person's smile hides unrest you can't explain. You're not imagining things, your spirit is waking up. This phase is sacred and strange at the same time. It can make you feel too open, too fragile, too aware of things no one else seems to sense. Crowded places overwhelm you. Shallow talk exhausts you. Even the music, news, or entertainment you once enjoyed now feels chaotic to your system. You begin to crave silence, nature, and solitude, not out of rejection of the world, but because your soul finally remembers peace. This isn't weakness, it's refinement. Your sensitivity is not a curse, it's a divine instrument being tuned. You are learning to feel on a heavenly frequency. What you call discomfort is simply your energy field rejecting what no longer aligns. Your body starts to echo this transformation. Sleep patterns change. You wake up at odd hours for no reason, but with a strange sense of presence. Certain foods, conversations, or environments begin to feel too dense for your vibration. Fatigue comes suddenly, not from physical effort, but from energetic overload. This is your soul asking you to slow down, to cleanse, to recalibrate. As you honor this sensitivity, you'll notice something else, awakening discernment. You begin to know without being told. You sense lies beneath kindness, truth beneath silence. You can feel when someone carries peace or turmoil before they even speak. And with that awareness comes wisdom. You no longer fight battles that aren't yours, and you stop trying to fix what heaven never assigned you. Sensitivity becomes your protection. It tells you where to go, what to release, and when to stay still. The world may label it overreacting, but heaven calls it spiritual intelligence, the ability to hear what cannot be heard, to see what cannot be seen. At first, you may wish you could turn it off, but eventually, you'll realize this is not something to escape, it's something to master, because the same energy that now makes you feel deeply is the very force that will allow you to heal deeply. You'll start noticing beauty in small details, the sound of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the pulse of your breath. You'll cry for reasons you can't explain and feel gratitude for moments that seem ordinary. That is the soul remembering wonder. That is heaven speaking directly to your spirit. Chosen one, this is the fourth sign of awakening, the moment when your heart becomes the radar of God. Through this gift, you begin to live not by logic, but by light. And though the world may never understand it, your sensitivity is the language through which heaven leads you home. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every awakening when what once sparkled begins to lose its shine. The applause, the recognition, the achievements that used to make you feel alive suddenly feel hollow. The world keeps clapping, but your soul grows silent. You no longer feel moved by validation because heaven is teaching you the difference between being seen by people and being known by God. For years, you were taught to perform, to achieve, to impress, to prove that you were worthy of love. You learned how to shine on command, how to chase results, how to measure yourself by outcomes that never seemed enough. But now, that rhythm feels foreign. Something inside you whispers, you were not created to perform. You were created to serve. This is the reversal of values, the sacred exchange of ego for essence. You no longer crave the spotlight, you crave alignment. You no longer need to be celebrated. You long to be centered in purpose. Your spirit begins to recognize that success without peace is still a form of failure. It's a disorienting season at first. You may feel unmotivated, even lost. The things that used to drive you now feel meaningless. But it's not depression, it's detachment. Heaven is unplugging you from the world's system of worth so you can remember your original one. Now your heart moves differently. You begin to care less about being liked and more about being real. You stop forcing connections just to appear kind and start choosing honesty even when it costs you approval. You find beauty in small things, sincerity, stillness, obedience, because they carry heaven's fragrance. Your productivity begins to shift from doing for validation to doing from revelation. You realize that purpose was never about performing for others. It was always about partnering with God. Every act, every word, every creation becomes an offering, not a performance. People around you may not understand this change. They might think you've lost ambition, but the truth is, you've found freedom. The need to prove yourself dissolves. The anxiety to be perfect fades, because when your actions flow from purpose, there is no competition, only creation. You begin to live slower but deeper. You move with intention. You no longer strive to climb, you rise naturally, with grace. What once looked like ambition now looks like peace, because your motives have changed. You no longer ask, "How far can I go?" but, "How true can I be?" Chosen one, this is your fifth symptom of awakening, the sacred pivot from performance to purpose. It's the moment when heaven rewires your heart to seek impact over impression, alignment over applause. You're not losing drive. You're gaining direction. You're not giving up. You're growing up. And when you finally stop chasing worth and start walking in truth, you'll realize that everything you were trying to become, you already were. You just had to remember. Chosen one, if this part has spoken to your spirit, take a deep breath and acknowledge it, that sensitivity you once saw as weakness is the very proof of your divine connection. Heaven chose you to feel deeply because only those who feel deeply can heal deeply. Type 777 in the comments if your spirit has been awakening to this new sensitivity. It's your declaration that you are done dimming your light to fit into dark spaces. And remember, every chosen one who learns to honor their sensitivity becomes a guardian of light in a world still asleep. Your empathy is not a burden, it's your superpower. You are not breaking, you are being fine-tuned for miracles. Chosen one, there comes a season when your plans begin to crumble, not because you failed, but because heaven is intervening. The strategies that once worked suddenly fall apart. The timing you trusted no longer aligns. The doors you tried to force remain closed, no matter how hard you knock. And though your mind screams for order, your spirit whispers, "Let go." Len, this is the shift from control to trust, the sacred moment when the Creator takes your hands off the wheel so He can reveal where He was leading all along. At first, it feels terrifying. You were taught to manage everything, to plan, to predict, to prepare for every possible outcome. But divine flow begins where control ends. God is not trying to ruin your plans. He's trying to redeem your path. The chosen ones often reach a breaking point where control no longer works. The tighter they hold, the faster things slip away. The more they strive, the more resistance they meet. It's not punishment, it's purification. Heaven removes your illusions of control to teach you a higher rhythm trust. You start to see that not everything lost was failure. Some things were protection. That delay wasn't rejection, it was divine redirection. The unanswered prayer was never no, it was not yet. And slowly, a strange peace begins to replace the panic. You begin to understand that when your plans collapse, something greater is being built beneath the surface. God is teaching you the choreography of surrender, a dance between faith and flow, obedience and rest. When you stop controlling, the miracles begin. You notice divine timing in small things. A message arrives just when you needed encouragement. A stranger says something that answers your private prayer. A delay reroutes you to safety without you even realizing it. This is not coincidence, it's divine orchestration. You start living by signs instead of stress, by intuition instead of fear. You feel heaven's hand arranging details you couldn't have planned if you tried. And though the old part of you still wants to know how and when, your spirit has learned to say, I don't need to know, I just need to trust. The more you surrender, the more aligned your life becomes. Doors open easily. Resources flow freely. You no longer chase. You attract. You no longer fight. You flow. This is the sixth symptom of the chosen ones, the moment your control dissolves and trust takes its place. You begin to understand that peace is not found in knowing every answer, but in trusting the one who already wrote them. Chosen one, release your grip. Stop trying to be the architect of what heaven already designed. Your surrender is not weakness, it's agreement. And when you finally yield, you'll realize the truth. You were never falling apart. You were being carried into divine alignment. Chosen one, after the silence, the pruning, and the surrender, something holy begins to rise from within you, the quiet knowing that you were sent here for a reason. You can't fully explain it, but you feel it. It begins as a spark, a pull, a sacred pressure in your spirit that whispers, there's something you must do. Run. This is the emergence of purpose, not a goal you choose, but a mission that chooses you. It's not born in your mind, it awakens in your soul. You realize that your entire life, the delays, the heartbreaks, the redirections, was not random. It was training. Every trial was a classroom, every loss a lesson in alignment. Before, you chased meaning through achievement. Now, meaning finds you through revelation. The same places that once drained you now feel irrelevant. The things that once mattered most no longer define you. You begin to hunger for something that goes beyond success, significance. At first, this awakening feels vague. You sense purpose but can't describe it. You know there's something you're meant to build, speak, heal, or create, yet the details are hidden. That's because heaven reveals direction through movement, not maps. The path appears only when you start walking. This is where faith graduates from belief to embodiment. You learn to act on whispers. You start making choices that don't make sense to the mind, but feel right to the heart. And each small act of obedience becomes a divine breadcrumb, leading you closer to your assignment. People around you may not understand. They'll tell you to be practical, to stay safe, to think logically. But the chosen ones were never called to logic, they were called to leap. Your leap is your language of trust. And the moment you take it, heaven responds with clarity. You begin to notice that purpose doesn't shout. It resonates. It lives in the things that make you come alive, the causes that move you, the moments that stir compassion, the messages that keep echoing in your dreams. These are not coincidences, they're divine hints. Purpose is not found by searching harder, it's revealed by surrendering deeper. When you stop chasing roles and start embracing resonance, you align with your true mission. And that mission always carries three signs. It serves others, it stretches your faith, and it brings peace even in uncertainty. Chosen one, this is the seventh symptom of awakening, the unveiling of your divine purpose. You no longer live for applause, but for assignment. You no longer ask, what do I want to do? But, what was I sent to do? You don't need the full picture to begin. You only need the courage to say yes. Because once you say yes, heaven will move mountains to meet you halfway. You were never lost. You were only being prepared. And now, what was once hidden is beginning to emerge. Chosen one, there comes a moment when you realize that your awakening is not yours alone. The same stirring that pulled you out of sleep is happening all over the world, in quiet rooms, on long walks, during sleepless nights where souls whisper the same prayer. There must be more than this. This is the collective awakening, the rising of a generation of light. It's not a movement of noise, fame, or force. It's a movement of remembrance. People everywhere are remembering who they are, where they came from, and what they were sent to do. And without even knowing it, they are finding each other. You may feel as if you've been walking this journey alone, but heaven wants you to know you are surrounded by others who carry the same fire, different faces, different stories, but one pulse, one divine frequency of purpose and light. What connects you is not religion, language, or culture, it's recognition. When you meet another awakened soul, you know. You feel peace, resonance, and a sense that you've met before because in truth, your spirits have always been part of the same family. The chosen ones are not a select few. They are a scattered network of divine sparks waking up across the earth, each one carrying a fragment of heaven's blueprint, a piece of the greater plan. When one awakens, others feel the ripple. When one remembers, the next begins to stir. This is why your awakening matters, because every time you rise, you call others home. The collective awakening isn't loud or visible on the surface. It happens in the quiet in hearts, choosing love over fear, in people forgiving what once poisoned them, in souls breaking cycles that have lasted generations. It's happening in artists who create with intention, in leaders who serve with humility, in ordinary people who decide to walk in truth even when it costs them comfort. The world may appear to be growing darker, but that's only because more light is being born. When light rises, shadows reveal themselves. Don't mistake exposure for chaos, it's purification. Heaven is cleansing the earth through awakened vessels like you. Chosen one, you are part of something cosmic, something ancient, a spiritual lineage that transcends time. You are not the beginning of this movement, and you are not the end. You are the continuation of a divine pattern, a thread of light in heaven's grand tapestry. This is the 8th sign of awakening, the awareness that your transformation is not isolated, but interconnected. You were chosen to awaken others, to anchor light in the midst of confusion, to remind humanity that we are not separate, but one. So keep shining, keep speaking, keep standing, because every time you choose truth over fear, love over bitterness, faith over doubt, the entire planet shifts a little closer to the divine frequency. And though you may never meet them all, somewhere another chosen one feels your light and whispers in their spirit, I remember too. Chosen one, after the storm, the silence, and the surrender, there comes a sacred calm, a deep inner knowing that you have finally come home. Not to a place, not to a person, but to yourself. This is the final realization, the understanding that what you were searching for was never outside of you. It was always within. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every season of isolation was leading you back to remembrance, to the divine spark that has been inside you since the beginning of time. For so long, you chased worth through achievement, love through approval, peace through control. But now you know those were only reflections of a deeper truth. What you were seeking through the world was simply your soul trying to return to its source. You begin to see that nothing was wasted. The tears were initiations. The delays were protection. The loneliness was preparation. Everything you thought was breaking you was actually building you. You stand now as both student and teacher of your own transformation, wiser, softer, more aligned. You understand that the goal was never perfection, but presence, not to escape the world, but to walk through it, awake. You no longer need to prove your divinity, you simply live it. You see the patterns now, how every closed door redirected you toward destiny, how every betrayal purified your heart, how every unanswered prayer revealed a better path, and gratitude begins to flow where grief once lived. You start thanking God for the very things you once questioned, realizing they were the building blocks of your becoming. This is the return to self, the moment your spirit, body, and purpose unite in harmony. You no longer chase alignment, you are alignment. You no longer seek signs, you are the sign. You no longer look for light, you become the light that guides others home. And in this space of wholeness, you finally understand why the journey had to unfold the way it did. Heaven wasn't trying to break you, heaven was trying to introduce you to yourself. The real you, the healed you, the chosen you. Now, your mission shifts. It's no longer about finding your place in the world. It's about building the world you were sent to shape. You carry wisdom in your wounds, authority in your scars, and compassion in your eyes. Every step you take from this point forward becomes an act of service to the light you carry. Chosen one, you are not at the end. You are at the beginning of divine living. You are not a survivor of awakening. You are its embodiment. If these words have resonated in your spirit, write in the comments, "I am returning to myself." Declare it as a seal, a covenant between your soul and heaven, because now you no longer walk searching for purpose. You walk as purpose. You no longer speak of light. You shine it. And heaven smiles, whispering over you. They remember. Chosen one, this is your confirmation. Your awakening was never an accident. You didn't stumble upon these words. Heaven scheduled this encounter. If this message stirred something within you, pause and write in the comments, "I am returning to myself." That declaration seals your new chapter the moment you step fully into remembrance. Let's awaken together. Subscribe, stay connected, and help this light reach more souls who are still in their silent battles. Because every time one chosen one rises, the entire frequency of the world lifts with them. You are not alone. You are part of the rising, a movement of remembrance, restoration, and divine return. Heaven is smiling upon you. Now go live as the proof that awakening is real. Your light has come.